Hey guys, it's Kevin again, this for Game of Thrones Season 5, Episode 2, The House of Black and White, and this was another great episode. I love this episode. I understand people think the season is kind of slow, but it's Game of Thrones. It's always like this. They're always setting things up. I know that we're getting to I know that there's going to be like an awesome battle and things like that, and the way things are going, I really loved, and I want to say something. A lot of people are hating on Daenerys' character, and while I don't like the things that she's doing, I have some reasons for what she's doing, why she's doing. But this episode I thought was great. I did think that the premiere was just a little bit stronger. I thought this was a great episode, and let's get into it because it was amazing. So we start off, and we see Arya, who I was definitely looking forward to seeing. I mean, of course, because the way that the last season ended, I mean, we saw that, I love the way, the last season ended. We saw that she was independent, she wants to be on her own, she thinks she can do things on her own. I was interested in seeing if she could actually survive on her own, which I'm pretty sure we all could tell, but I thought it was cool to just see her again, because obviously, Arya, we want to see Arya again. So she has arrived at the Titan of Braavos from the deck of the ship she boarded, and as the ship's captain tells her stories of how the Titan would come alive and wade in the water to defend Braavos from attack, she then examines the city's docks as she's rowed to shore, and the captain takes her to the House of the Black and White, which is why the episode was called House of Black and White, and basically he tells her it's where she'll find the man that she seeks, and she steps onto the shore where the building stands in front of her, and we don't know what he means by find the man. I wasn't sure exactly what he meant there, and basically there's one black door and one white door, and the captain leaves her there, and basically Arya then knocks on the door, and a man in this dirty, simple robe opens the door and stares at her, and she greets him with Valyr Morghulis, and he shows him her coin, telling him she got it from Jaquan Hagar, and the man only says that nobody by that name is there and shuts the door. So either she's in the wrong place. I mean, she's really confused because obviously she expected for someone by, Jaquan to be there and he's not there. So basically, Arya sits outside the House of Black and White until nightfall, reciting the names on her list, and she remains there, and, it's a really sad scene. We see Cersei's name is there, and she remains there even as she stares to Brain and into the next day, saying the names and looking at the coin. She finally stands up, walks away, tossing the coin into water, and you just feel really bad for her. I mean, we thought that Arya knew what she was doing, but even she knew that, she doesn't know what she's doing, and she's really upset. And it kind of is interesting to see Arya go through this, because we've always seen Arya as, like, this badass character, so I kind of like that she got something wrong for once. I thought that was really well done, and I didn't really expect that, but I thought that was really good. I actually really enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool, actually. So Brienne and Pod stop at an inn for a meal, and I was interested in seeing where this was going to go, because, of course, Brienne said that she's going to, possibly find Sansa and everything, and that's exactly what she did, because Sansa and Littlefinger are in the same place eating as well, and basically Sansa asks Littlefinger about the message he received before they left the Vale, and Littlefinger tells Sansa that his marriage proposal has been accepted, and that's great and everything. So Pod notices Littlefinger and Sansa and basically points them out to Brienne, and Pod advises caution, but Brienne tells him to ready the horses, and I was wondering if she was actually going to talk to them. And Brienne approaches Sansa and Littlefinger, but the guards step in her way. She introduced herself, but Littlefinger reminds her that they were introduced to each other by Renly Baratheon previously. So this is not the first time they've seen Brienne. So Littlefinger invites Brienne to come forward, and Brienne swears her sword to Sansa, and Littlefinger questions Brienne about what happened to Renly, and she tells the story of Stannis' shadow, but Littlefinger only points out how many times Brienne has failed. He asks why he, as Sansa's uncle by marriage, should want such a failure protecting Sansa, and Brienne asks for a word alone with Sansa, but Sansa doesn't really want to speak to her, and it might just be because it's because she saw Brienne kneel to Joffrey, and of course she wants nothing to do with Joffrey, because she knows that anyone that has a connection to Joffrey has a connection to Cersei, and if Brienne has a connection to Cersei, Cersei's coming after her, and she wants to do whatever she can to get away from that, and I like seeing Sansa kind of be this independent woman. I like she's going through that, and I think it's a really interesting storyline. So Brienne, seeing that there's nothing she's going to do here, she makes a break for the horses, cutting them free to take off with Pod behind her, and basically Littlefinger's men give them chase through a forest, and eventually Brienne and Pod become separated, and I was like, no, because I love Brienne and Pod together. Now they're separated, and basically I like what they do with them now they're separated, and basically they're separated now. So Brienne gives the men following her the slip and doubles back to see Sansa, Littlefinger, and their entourage on the move. Meanwhile, Pod's horse throws him from the saddle into a river, where he's found by one of Littlefinger's men, and the knight charges at Pod, but Brienne arrives in time to intercept, and the second knight attacks as well, but Brienne cuts him down, and Brienne says they'll follow Littlefinger and Sansa, and Pod suggests that maybe she is released from her vow after being refused by both Stark sisters, but Brienne doesn't believe that Sansa's safe. She doesn't really think that Sansa's doing the right thing, and I can see her point. I mean, there's no, actual plan of where Sansa knows where she's going, and there's no one that says she can trust Littlefinger. I mean, the last place he took her, she almost died. His I believe was his sister or something. That girl thought she was crazy and everything, that she was in love with Littlefinger. I mean, there's no telling what could happen to her. She's not necessarily safe, and I like that Brienne is saying that just because Sansa seems to know what she's doing, that does not necessarily mean she's safe, which, no, that's not true. So Jaime comes to see Cersei, and he opens a container that contains a snake statue with a necklace in its mouth, and Cersei says only 2 such necklaces exist, her own and the one she gave to her daughter Myrcella, and this is the first time we've heard of Myrcella in a while, and we actually see her in this episode, which I believe we haven't seen her since Season 2, if I looked that up correctly. They take it as a threat, and Cersei blames Jaime's caution about their children's true parentage for everything that has befallen them, and Jaime says he's going to go to Dorne to find Myrcella, and, she's talking about how if Jaime raised their kids, then they'd be terrible, and basically Jaime said that he'd be terrible at doing that, and basically he's going to go to Dorne and find Myrcella, and now we finally have something for Jaime to do this season. I thought Jaime was going to help, the knight that wasn't... Remember that knight that was, in training that wasn't working, didn't really know how to work a sword? I thought that's what Jaime was going to do, but that's not actually what he's doing. So I think this is actually a lot more interesting that they're going to find Myrcella. Of course, I still hate Cersei's character. I mean, I still don't like Cersei's character. I understand they want to find their daughter and everything, but when she's, ranting about how Tommen and now I can't remember her name, I can't remember her name now. You guys know what I'm talking about. Tommen's wife, you know what I'm talking about. When she talks about her and how much of a whore she is, I'm just like, shut the fuck up, Cersei. The only reason you don't like her is because she's not, she's in love with your son, and it's genuine love, and you can't accept, genuine love. Seriously, Cersei simply cannot accept genuine love, and I really can't stand that she can't accept just genuine love. It's really annoying. And that's one of the reasons why I absolutely hate Cersei's character. I'll always hate Cersei, and that's just something that it will always be. I'll always hate Cersei. That's just how it goes. So, Bronn, dressed in clothing befitting his new station, is skipping rocks along the coast while his bride-to-be discusses their upcoming wedding, and it's a kind of a cute scene. I enjoyed seeing them overall. And Bronn examines the castle he thinks he'll inherit, but Lolly explains that her sister will inherit Stokeworth, and Bronn makes valid threats toward Lolly's sister before spotting Jaime, and basically Bronn expresses condolences concerning Tywin's death, and Lolly's leaves them. Basically, Jaime hands Bronn a scroll that says Lolly's will be marrying someone else, and Jaime says Bronn will be coming with him, and when they return, he'll give Bronn a much better girl and a much better castle. Because obviously she's not interested in inheriting Stokeworth. She's not interested in that, and basically she just wants her sister to inherit Stokeworth, and, she's not interested in that, so Jaime's going to help Bronn get someone who is a lot better than that. So I'm wondering if Jaime's going to keep that promise to him. We'll see what happens overall, and we'll just see. We'll see what happens. I think that was really good overall. So Elrya Sand watches Myrcella with a young Dornish prince from a balcony in Dorne, and she goes to speak to Prince Doran, and is at first blocked by Aerohota until Doran tells him to let... Now, if you remember, Elrya is actually the wife of Oberyn, because, of course, Oberyn died, and now she's getting revenge, and I was very interested in seeing what was going to happen here. So Elrya reminds Doran that Oberyn was murdered, and Doran reminds her that basically death during trial by combat is not murder, which is true. I mean, that's what a trial by combat is. You fight until you die. That's how it works. And it's not murder, and if that happens, even though Elrya doesn't understand that, basically he tells her that he will not go to war. They're not going to go to war just because someone was killed in combat. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you will go to war just because someone died in combat, there's nothing you can do about that. There's this thing called war, and people die, and she needs to understand that just because, her husband died, it was a fair trial. It was. There was no, he didn't cheat. There was no cheating or anything. Hodor didn't cheat or anything. He killed he killed Oberyn, he, smashed him like a tomato, but he didn't cheat. He got him out with his bare hands, and that's not cheating, so that basically is what they did. So Elariah says that the Sand Snakes are with her and seeking revenge, and she resents that Doran is allowing Myrcella to enjoy their hospitality. She wants to mutilate and kill Myrcella, but Doran says they will not do such things while he rules, and she questions how long that will be. So now I really like where this is going, because we know that Jaime is going to find Myrcella, and it seems like Elariah is going to stand in his way. So definitely there's going to be some conflict between Jaime and Elariah, and I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen there if that does happen. So in Meereen, Daario tells Grey Worm that the Unsullied are too conspicuous to find the Sons of the Harpy, and basically, Daario suggests that his second sons blend in much better. They burst into a building only to find that it's empty, completely empty, and Grey Worm's ready to go, but Daario stabs into a false wall where a man is hiding. The dagger finds the man's leg, and in the wall, Grey Worm finds knives and a Sons of the Harpy mask. So in the Great Pyramid, Daenerys and her advisors discuss what to do with the Sons of the Harpy they found, because of course, she didn't really know what to do there, and a lot of people have been talking about how much they hate Daenerys, that Daenerys is becoming this terrible character, and that they think she's really annoying. I don't hate her character. Here is why I think Daenerys is becoming the way she is. Her dragons are her babies, and I've talked about this before. She is not the queen of the dragons without her dragons, and I understand she has to lock them up, she has to protect them. Without her dragons, I've said it before, she's nothing. She's nothing, and I think she's so preoccupied by losing her dragons, and she can't function without them. That's really why she is not doing a good job this year. I don't think it's that she is a terrible character. I don't think it's that her writing is bad. I think she simply cannot function without her dragons because she is the dragon queen. She cannot function without her dragons. It's that simple. And basically, they're talking about what to do with the Sons of the Harpy. They're arguing back and forth, but no one can come to a conclusion. And Daenerys dismisses them, but Selmy remains. And he talks to her of the Mad King, telling her that the stories of insanity and cruelty were no lies. He tells her that Aerys' efforts to intimidate people into obedience only sparked a rebellion. She takes his meaning and agrees not to have the Sons of the Harpy executed without a fair trial. So she's not going to have them executed, which I think is the right thing to do. I mean, if you can't get someone executed if they don't have a fair trial. I was like, okay, that's a good thing that Daenerys is doing. Which at the end of the episode, yeah, I can understand why people hate her, but I don't personally hate her character. So, then what I love seeing this scene, because then we see Tyrion and Varys, and I was very interested in seeing what was going to happen here, because as we know, they're going to see Daenerys, and I was wondering if they were going to meet up with her. I'm pretty sure that they are not going to meet up with her until I'd say halfway through the season. Episode 5, I think that's when they're going to meet up with Daenerys. Now, don't tell me if you guys have seen the first 4 episodes, don't tell me if they meet up with her in episodes 3 or 4, but I personally feel like they're going to meet up with her in the half point of the season, and then the second half of the season will be trying to redeem Daenerys. Because honestly, Daenerys is in a really bad position, Tyrion's in a really bad position, and I think Tyrion and Daenerys, they can help each other out. I think he's going to help her, and she's going to help him, because he's still in this terrible depression we see, and Varys tells Tyrion he can't walk outside because the bounty Cersei put on his head, and they're currently heading to Volantis to get on the road to Meereen, and basically Varys tells Tyrion that he was quite good at ruling during his time as the Hand of the King, and Tyrion again says he wants to go for a walk, joking that Cersei couldn't possibly kill all the dwarves in the world, and we see that he doesn't really care much. He really doesn't. And a dwarf's head is put on the table in front of Cersei. She says it's not Tyrion, and she's really pissed because obviously she wants to go after Tyrion. She wants to kill Tyrion, and she sends the men who brought it to her away and tells them to take the head, but Qyburn asks to keep it for his work. So Cersei and Qyburn join a meeting of the Small Council, which includes Kevan Lannister, Mace Tyrell, and Grand Maester Pycelle, who is the queen serving as advisor to her son until he comes of age, promotes Mace Tyrell to Master in Coin as well as Master of Ships, and she promotes Qyburn to Master of Whispers since Varys had abandoned that post, and she offers Kevan the role of Master of War, but he argues with her, refusing to be her puppet, and he says she is the Queen Mother and nothing more, and leaves for Casterly Rock until the king summons him. So, I think that's really interesting what she's doing. She's giving everyone these roles, and more so. But the thing is, how is Tommen really is Tommen gonna do a good job here? I mean, the king has to summon him, but as we've seen before, Tommen's not really a good king, and is Tommen really concerned about it? To me, it just seems like Tommen's concerned in his marriage. That's really what it seems like he's concerned about to me. But we'll have to see what happens there, because I don't really know what else he's concerned about, so we'll see. And this next scene I really like, because then we see that Sheeran is trying to teach Gilly to read, and while Sam looks up facts about commanders of the Night's Watch through history in his books, Shireen, actually, that's her name, says she learned to read at the early age of 3 because her mother kept her inside to hide the grayscale, and Gilly recounts stories of her two sisters who contracted grayscale and were forced outside, and I think this grayscale thing is really interesting. They died covered in it and behaving like animals, and Celeste enters, and Sam and Gilly leave, and Celeste tells Shireen to stay away from Gilly because of the threat that the Wildlings pose to Stannis. Because, yeah, they do have a huge threat to Stannis, obviously. Because, Stannis just wants power. He wants to be the king, and that's really what Stannis wants. So, basically, Stannis scolds Jon for showing mercy to Mance Rayder against the king's orders because, of course, he told Jon straight out, kill Mance. That was interesting seeing how Stannis was going to react to this. Because, of course, as we know, Jon did not kill Mance. He didn't let Mance burn. He, killed him by arrow, and basically, I think Stannis should at least be happy that Jon killed him. Like, he's not like, okay, I'm not going to kill you. He killed him, he just didn't kill him in the way that Stannis wanted him to, and that's something that I think is really annoying about Stannis, that if you don't do something in the way that Stannis wants, he gets really pissed about it, and I can understand why he's upset about it, but seriously, at least he killed him. At least he killed him. Seriously, at least he killed him. He didn't just spare him, he killed him. So, he did what you wanted, he just didn't do it in the way you wanted him to. So Jon says with respect that the Wildlings will never follow him, only one of their own, and Stannis shows Jon a message from Lyanna Mormont. And I can understand what Jon's saying there, because the Wildlings, basically, Jon's going to do what he wants to do. He's going to do what the Night's Watch wants him to do. He's not going to listen to Stannis. What the Night's Watch wants, that is what Jon is going to do there. So, basically, Stannis then shows Jon this message from Lyanna Mormont, who's saying her house only serves the king in the north, whose name is Stark, and they talk about the upcoming election of a new Lord Commander. And there we see, this is where we're setting up Stannis becoming the king, and basically, they talk about the upcoming election of a new Lord Commander, which Alliser Throne will most likely win, and Stan offers the North to Jon, saying he'll grant Jon his father's name to make him Jon Stark, and that is true, because Jon is a Stark, but his last name is not Stark. So, he's going to help him legally change his last name and get him to be a Stark. And basically, if Jon kneels before Stannis, he can rule in Winterfell. I'm saying this right now, I'm basically thinking that this is just Stannis' way of getting to rule. That's what Stannis wants to do. I don't think Stannis is helping Jon. I think this is purely just negotiating, blackmailing him into doing this. I think that's simply what this is. I do not trust Stannis, because as we know, Stannis wants that crown. He has wanted it since Tywin has been king, and now that Tywin is dead, which I am not sure that Stannis knows about. I don't know if Stannis knows of Tywin's death. I'm assuming he does, because everyone seems to know. I think he just wants the crown. I think that's really all he cares about, is just getting that crown, and I think he's going to take it from Jon. I don't think that he's actually going to do what he's saying to Jon. I think this is just his way of getting Jon to listen to him, because that's all he really wants to do. So, Jon tells Sam, and Sam is happy for him, but Jon says he's going to refuse, and I like that Jon says that, because if he breaks his vow to the Night's Watch, what kind of lord could he hope to be? Which honestly is true. You have to be loyal to basically your family, and the Night's Watch is his family. While the Starks are where he's from, the Night's Watch has really become his family. They're really there for him all the time, he's with them all the time. That's really the new norm for him. So, Maester Aemon asks for candidates for Lord Commander, and Janis Slynt immediately stands for Alliser Throne. Another stands for Denys Mallister, and Aemon moves to begin voting. Sam interrupts him and elects Jon even though Jon said he didn't want to be elected, and Alliser stands and casts aspirations on Jon as a Wildling sympathizer for his love of Ygritte, and the respect and mercy he showed to Mance Rayder, and the Night's Watch votes, and the votes are counted. There's a tie between Jon and Throne, and Aegon himself casts the final tie-breaking vote for Jon, and Jon basically wins. So, what do I think is going to happen? I think definitely Jon is going to be screwed over by Stannis. I don't think you should trust Stannis. I think Stannis, as I said, just wants that crown, and all he wants is the power. I don't think that Stannis legitimately gives two shits about Jon winning anything. I don't think he cares. I think this is just his way of getting the crown from Jon, and that's what he's going to do. So, Arya uses Needle to kill a bird in the street, and a man with two others sees her and asks her what she's got. She tells them to turn around, and pulls Needle on them. They are not intimidated and plan to rob her of her sword. And when the man from the House of the Black and White shows up, she asks him why the others were scared of him. And he tosses her back her coin and pulls off his face. And we see that this is actually Jaquin, Hagar beneath. So she found Jaquin. I didn't think she'd find him, but she did. She found Jaquin, which is great. And she reminds him that he said there was no man named Jaquin in the house. And Jaquin says there isn't because a man is not Jaquin. And she asks who he is, and he replies, no one, and that is what a girl must become. She opens the door to the house, and Arya walks inside. So basically, Jaquin, I think, Arya obviously has to pretend to be Jaquin. I'm not really sure what's going on there. We'll see. I don't really know what's they're setting up there. I'm really not sure where they're going with that, but I think that's really interesting overall. So, Masador speaks for the freed slaves on Daenerys' council, enters the cell of the Son of the Harpy with some other men. The Son tells him that Daenerys will never belong there, and the Son is nailed to the wall with a mask on his head and kill the Masters written in blood on the wall. And Masador stands for judgment at Daenerys' feet. Masador basically tells a story of the rebellion he fought in for Daenerys of killing his father's master. Daenerys says that the Son's life was not Masador's to take, and that the law is the law. She orders Masador taken away, and crowds gather in the street, including some of the Masters. As Daenerys and her entourage stand in a pavilion, she delivers a speech about freedom and justice and how no one can exist without the other. And the whole crowd, they're cheering Misa and everything, they're just loving her. And she's gonna screw it up. This scene, I'm like, she's gonna screw it up somehow. You can see this look on her face that she knows what's gonna happen. So, Masador's brought before. Masador asks for mercy and does, as does the crowd, but Daenerys sends him to death. What? You just said that you were going to give him this trial, but then you sent him to death, and the crowd just continues to beg for mercy until Daario cuts off Masador's head, and the crowd falls silent. They're hissing, they're pissed at her, the former slaves throw rocks, and, think of what Daenerys wanted to do last season. She wanted to do whatever she could to protect these slaves. She wanted to help them out, she wanted to, become their mother, basically, and now she's betrayed them. But again, it's all because of the dragons, and we see that in the final scene because Daenerys is hurried to safety, and it's just, there was a whole riot starting. She basically caused a riot to start, and once back in her chambers, Daenerys sends her council away. She hears something above and walks upstairs. She walks out to the balcony, finds Drogon standing up top of the pyramid. He moves towards her. She reaches out to him, but he takes off again before she can touch him, and we see that basically these dragons, she needs her dragons, and I think that Daenerys is going to somehow help these dragons, because I think Daenerys knows that without her dragons, that she cannot function as a dragon queen, and that's basically how the episode ends. So overall, guys, an amazing episode, as usual. I'm loving this season. I think this was another amazing episode. There's a lot to talk about. Let's first talk about, I guess, Jon and Stannis. As I said, I don't trust Stannis one bit. I think this is just Stannis' way of getting Jon on his side, getting to take Jon's crown. That's what he wants. I don't think he legitimately cares about Jon getting his name changed, because why would he care? Why would anyone care about that? I don't see why Stannis would care about Jon getting his name changed. It just doesn't make sense to me. Just notice that the second that, and I'm noticing something, the second that Tywin dies, Stannis becomes loyal to Jon. He's never been loyal to Jon. Never. There was no point last season where Stannis and Jon's story intertwined at any point. So, this is all just because of Tywin's death, and he wants to take the crown from him. That's really what it's all about. Let's talk about Jaime and Jaime and Ellaria. They're definitely going to be a lot of clashing there, because obviously she wants to kill Myrcella while Jaime's going to find Myrcella. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens there. But Ellaria needs to understand that just because her husband died in combat does not mean it was murder, because it wasn't murder. Her husband was not murdered. He was killed, but he wasn't murdered, because it was a trial by combat, and if someone dies, well, that's how you win. So she can't say that it was a trial by combat. I mean, if her husband had killed someone, if her husband actually killed Hodor, she wouldn't have thought of it as, just a trial, as a murder. She would have thought of it, okay, it was a trial, fair win. That's what she would have thought of it as. Because her husband was murdered, she's thinking of it, because her husband was in a trial, she's thinking of it as murder, but it's not a murder, and she needs to understand that. Let's talk about Bronn. I think is really interesting as well. We're going to see what happens with Bronn. I'm wondering if Jaime's going to keep his promise to Bronn, because obviously Jaime's telling Bronn that he's going to give him a better wife and everything, but we'll see what actually ends up happening if he does. We'll see what happens overall. I'm interested in seeing if Brienne is going to find Sansa. Do you think that Sansa can function on her own? I mean, Brienne's not really sure she can, but we'll see what ends up happening there. I just love seeing Brienne and Pod interact. Honestly, as I said, you could build a whole show just around those two. If Game of Thrones ever ends, which let's face it, Game of Thrones is going to go on for like 10 seasons. It's not going to end for a while. But whenever it does end, Brienne and Pod need their own spin-off show. Seriously, I could think of any characters to give a spin-off show, those two, Brienne and Pod, I'm fine with that. They provide so much humor to the show, and I just love those two together. I do. Those are my favorite parts of the show, and whenever they're on the show, I light up. I love seeing them on the show. Cersei and Tommen, I don't know if Tommen actually cares much about, basically doing what he needs to do, leaving for Casterly Rock, basically, giving all these new positions. Is he actually going to summon these people? What's he going to do about that? Does he actually really care? Because I don't think Tommen is really, he's a good king, he's a nice king, but he's not a good king in the sense that he's not really that level-headed. And my only worry is that if he does become interested in that, is he going to become Joffrey? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's one of their worries as well. And that might be Jaime's worry. That might be the reason why Jaime doesn't want to do anything about it. Because they're worried that he might turn into, that he might just turn into Joffrey. Which I don't think Tommen will. Because, he's like the nicest guy ever right now. But we'll see what happens there overall. I like seeing the storyline with Shireen and Gilly. I thought that was cute overall. I enjoyed that. And I guess I finally want to talk about, the last thing I'll talk about is Arya. What's really going on there, I'm not really sure. We'll see. But Tyrion and Daenerys, I think they're going to help each other out. I think that Tyrion is going to help Daenerys, and Daenerys is going to help Tyrion. And I really think that's what's going to happen here. But again, great episode. Loving this season so far. This has been an amazing season already. Every storyline is so interesting this season. Every storyline I'm loving. There's nothing boring this season, and I love that. I love that there's nothing boring because, let's face it, Game of Thrones is never boring. It's never boring, but there are scenes where it's just like, okay, whatever, I don't really care, but I think it's really interesting where we're getting into. I mean, Daenerys turning against, turning against her slaves is going to be interesting to see. But let me know what you guys saw this episode overall. That's in my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys in my next video, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Mad Men. So I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.